Yo, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech,
And this is Nika Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
and welcome to episode 100 of the snobOS show, the show for the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. So, like I said, welcome to the episode 100. I think you mentioned, Nika, earlier in the pre-show that not a lot of podcasts make it this long, so we definitely want to thank you for your hanging in there this long with us. Thank you for your support. Speaking of support, we definitely want to thank our Patreon family. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a part of our family. We call them the snobOS. And for that $5, you get access to our live show taping, so you can watch it as we're recording it. Get access to the pre-show because we have a little bit of banter, a little bit of extra to the show that you won't get on the regular show. And you get access to our Discord chat, which I'm pretty sure we're going to move that over to Facebook, because who's not on Facebook? So for now, it's Discord, but probably next week or the week after, maybe the new year, we'll probably move it over to a Facebook group so we can actually talk to you guys in between the actual shows. So we definitely want to thank all of our snobbists for their continued support, because without them, we cannot do all the cool things that we are doing right now. So definitely want to thank you for that. Having said that, let's move right into our show. We want to start with the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. And in other news, outside of all the election stuff that went on like crazy last week, I think we've kind of moved on a little bit, and we've got some different information. Speaking of, it was the Apple's One More Thing event, which was pretty much all Mac. You know, they talked a little bit about macOS Big Sur, that's going to be available probably at the time of this airing yesterday. So if you haven't downloaded macOS Big Sur, you can definitely get that now. They, went over some things about that, how compatible it is with iPhone apps, how compatible it is with, this new M1 chip that we'll get into. Speaking of which, probably the main news of the Apple event was the Apple ARM, what they're calling it, the Apple Silicon M1 chip. So I'm just going to short all that down. So from here going forth, I'm going to call it the M1 chip. So if you hear me say M1, that's what I mean. Apple's new Silicon ARM chip. So I just wanted to, kind of go over some information about this new chip from Apple. It is industry-leading performance, powerful features, incredible efficiency. M1 is Apple's first chip designed specifically for the Mac. So this is not an Intel chip. This is not something you can find in any other device or any other company, all specifically for the Macs. So it boasts all of the new features. One of the main things is 2 times faster CPU performance, 25% with 25% of the power. So it's not using a whole lot of power to get 2 times faster CPU performance. The M1 features an 8-core CPU consisting of 4 high-performance cores and 4 high-efficiency cores. Each of the high-performance cores provide industry-leading performance for single-threaded tasks while running as efficiently as possible. They are the world's fastest CPU cores in a low-power silicon, allowing photographers to edit high-resolution photos with lightning speed and developers to build apps nearly 3 times faster than before. All 4 cores can be used together for a huge boost in multi-thread performance. So all that means is there's an 8-core CPU, 4 cores for what was it? Where did I
Computing.
read it? Yes. 3.5% faster CPU performance. Another thing that the M1 chip does is it puts all the different technologies down into one chip. So I had let me find this actual, where are you at? I had a picture that I wanted to show of all the different cores, but I lost it. So basically So basically I was going to say it puts all the different technologies into one core versus having different chips on the same motherboard, like the neural engine, so on and so forth. So
Graphics,
right,
pretty much everything.
Right. GPU, all of that good stuff. So let me read a little bit more about the neural engine. The M1 chip brings the Apple neural engine to the Mac, greatly accelerating machine learning. Apple's featuring Apple's most advanced 16-core architecture capable of 11 trillion operations per second. The neural engine in the M1 enables up to 15 times faster machine learning performance. In fact, the entire M1 chip is designed to excel at machine learning with ML accelerators in the CPU and a powerful GPU. So tasks like video analysis, voice recognition, and image processing will have a level of performance never seen before on a Mac. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just say, anybody listening, place a little bookmark on neural engine. That will, what Terrence just said regarding the neural engine and how many cores it comes with, and the efficiency of the machine learning, because that's definitely going to come back into play once we start talking about the actual hardware that this chip will be going into.
Yep. So, like I said before, Big Sur is optimized for M1. So, with Big Sur and M1, Mac users can run a greater range of apps than ever before. All of Apple's Mac software is now universal and runs natively on M1 systems. Existing Mac apps that have not been updated to universal will run seamlessly with Apple's Rosetta 2 technology. So that's for all of the developers who have created apps and software for the Intel processors. They'll use Rosetta 2 technology to be able to port, and I use that in quotations because I don't know what the actual term is, but port all of those and make those compatible is the word I was looking for. Make it compatible for the M1 chip. So it's to furthermore, and iPhone and iPad apps can run directly on a Mac. The foundations for Big Sur optimized to unlock the power of M1, including developer technologies for Metal for graphics to Core ML for machine learning. So basically, there is a new processor that Apple has created. It's specifically for Macs. It will all 2 times faster. Faster speed, faster graphics, less power, longer battery life. Made specifically for a Mac, which means iPhone and iPad apps can work on the Mac. So if you're a developer and you want to make one app across all the platforms, the M1 chip makes it that much more easier. So I guess as a developer, what do you think about this new M1 chip technology? Is this something that Apple needed to do? Could they have continue to use Intel processors and got by, or do you think this is a natural progression? And do you think, what more importantly, how do you think people are going to take this? Not just regular computer guys like me, but actual people who need it for like developing video creation. How do you think they're going to take it?
So I think it was a natural progression. Could Apple have continued with the Intel chip? Sure. I mean, that's what Intel does. They build chips to power laptops and other devices of the kind. But it's a natural progression for Apple. If we've noticed anything about Apple over the past several years, they want to own everything. If you look as far as security, as far as data protection, they want to keep everything in-house under Apple's thumb. So it makes perfect sense that they come out with this M1 chip and that they are going to slowly, over the next year and a half, move all of their devices over to this chip, because Apple wants to be able to control as much of their devices as possible. And it keeps all the money in the same house,
right,
so to speak. So I definitely think it was a natural progression for them. As far as the chip itself looks pretty fantastic. If it can deliver on what they're promising, I think it's going to be a major shift. What I think may cause a bit of contention and concern from some folks in the tech space, particularly developers, is that we are not used to seeing this type of advancement on a chip, meaning you won't need as much RAM to be able to continue at the pace that you need to run multiple IDEs. You have to have the IDE where you're doing development on it. You have to be able to run simulations. And so it takes up a lot of power and just system capability of your device. So I think what is probably going to cause some concern. I've already seen it on Twitter from folks in tech and folks outside of tech being like, "What do you mean you're only giving me 64 gigs of RAM? What are
16
you
rather.
talking?" Yeah, yeah, 16. What are you thinking? Like, there's no possible way that I can do everything. I can't do my video editing. I can't do my audio editing. I can't develop on that low amount of RAM. So I think it's going to take some re-education from Apple to not only the tech community but the broader community as well, because we're used to, when you're looking for a new laptop or a new device, the first thing you check is how much RAM does it have? Is it going to have enough storage to do everything that I need to do? And again, we'll talk about it later once we start talking about the actual hardware that this chip goes into. It's raising eyebrows, and I just think it's what Apple does. They re-innovate. So I think it's one of those things where they're leading obviously in this respect, but also it's going to cause other chip makers, Intel and some of the other ones, to say, wait a minute, we need to rethink our process, because now our mind has to shift from the focus being on RAM size to actual how well this chip runs is going to run and power these devices.
Right.
So I think it's going to be some eyebrows raised to see if Apple can actually pull this off. And
Right.
I'm assuming they can, because they've introduced it and they've put it in one of their most popular devices, their bread and butter, which is the MacBook Pro.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, so you mentioned that, Intel may have to rethink how they do things. They may not be able to do it simply because of something that you mentioned. Apple controls the whole thing, from the chip to the computers to the operating system. Intel doesn't. Intel just has the chip, and their chip has to be compatible for all these different manufacturers, all these different well, not all these different operating systems. It's just Windows. But you think of Chrome OS, you think of all these things, and they use Intel, or do they use ARM? I can't remember. Anyway, a lot of different companies, a lot of different products, a lot of different manufacturers use Intel processors, not just for computers, for all types of things, right? That's not the case with Apple. Apple's specific devices will use this M1 chip, and that's it. So Apple has a lot of freedom and a lot less constraints that they have to work with. So the fact that Apple does own the whole entire ecosystem can allow them to say something like, you don't need that much RAM, or you may not be able to even use a separate external GPU, graphics processing unit for the layman's, and get away with it, right? And like you said, the re-education, it may take some re-education on Apple's part, but again, that's a benefit because it's all in-house. All they got to say is, look, this is how we're doing things. This is how you should do things. Here's some resources. Here's some whatever the case may be. And people will figure it out, right? Versus Intel trying to do it. You'll have so many different people barking at them versus, when Apple tries it, you may have some developers, you may have some high-end content creators kind of, well, what am I supposed to do? And then you figure it out, right?
Yeah, and also the same thing is Apple has proven time and time again that their devices are just fantastic, that they come out with, really great devices. You were talking about yesterday how one of your daughters was using a 2009 Mac.
Right.
I mean, that thing is almost 20 years old,
Right.
and it was still, doing what needs to be done, and it would have continued doing what needed to be done if, there wasn't some spillage.
Right.
So it's one of those things where I think that they've shown that what they say they do, they can back it up. But again, people are going to be skeptical.
Right.
But I think they get the benefit of the doubt because they are Apple.
Okay. All right. Speaking of the hardware, you made mention to it multiple times. Apple did not only just announce a new processor, they announced new devices, specifically Macs, to actually house this new M1 chip. First on the list is the newest MacBook Air. It's the thinnest, lightest, all the good things, 3 times faster CPU speeds, GPU speeds up to 5 times faster, our most advanced neural engine, 9 times fast machine learning, all the good things in this new MacBook Air. Again, this MacBook specifically takes advantage of the M1 chip to do all of the extra things. For instance, 5 times faster graphics with the 8-core GPU that we mentioned earlier, 18 hours of battery life. That's 6 more hours of your current MacBook Air. There's no fan in this MacBook Air because this chip does a lot on its own. You don't need all these separate you don't need this bigger motherboard or logic board with all these different chips that need to be cooled. It's just one chip that's doing it. So there's no fan in the latest MacBook Air, which should make a lot of people happy. Specifically, I've got my youngest daughter that you mentioned. She spilled some juice in our 2009 white MacBook Pro, MacBook rather, and we had to go out and get her a MacBook Air. So we got her a, inexpensive MacBook Air from 2014. And anytime she gets on a Zoom call, that fan spins up, right? So I feel so bad for her, but hey, you got a less expensive MacBook Air that's yours, so deal with it, right? But all that to say, if we were to get, upgrade the kids to a newer MacBook Air, there's no fan, so they won't feel as embarrassed when they are on Zoom calls with all the extra background noise. Of course, the MacBook Air will come with macOS Big Sur, which is their new operating system that, like I mentioned before, also takes advantage of the M1 chip. And all of that, 2 terabytes, up to 2 terabytes worth of storage for a 2 times faster SSD, again, as it relates to the M1 chip. All of that with the same price as your entry-level MacBook Air at what, $699? Or no, $999. I'm sorry.
No, $999.
Yeah, $699 is for the other thing that I'll talk about a little bit later. $999 for the latest MacBook Air. So I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on this latest iteration of the MacBook Air.
So I think it's really good. Again, it all relies on the performance. And if this chip, because it is an unknown, and typically when you have an Apple announcement and they're particularly announcing new Macs, you get like a live demo of sorts. You get to kind of see it in action. And because Apple is doing these pre-produced events, we aren't able to get that. And at typical Apple events, they normally, after the announcement, all the developers can go get their hands, they can try it out, and you get almost immediate feedback on the device. We don't have that now, so that's, I think, another thing that plays into some people's skepticism, if you want to call it that, is that they're just having to take, at this point, Apple's word only. They aren't able to get their hands on it. So I think that puts a little bit of a pin in it. But if it does what it says it does, I think it's, I don't think they said it's light, if it's lighter than the previous Air, but the fact that the fan is gone, I mean, that in itself, that's pretty fantastic, because these fans can be pretty loud.
Right.
But you still have the same, the size, the lightness, the thinness.
It has some additional things like Wi-Fi 6. I didn't mention it has Wi-Fi 6 technology with up to 1.2 gigabytes of throughput, and it has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. The previous Mac.
To say they get some more ports.
Right.
As well.
Well, just one more, but that's one more. That's right. There's one more than the current one has. My wife has a 2019 MacBook Air, and it just has the one single Thunderbolt port. So if she wants to plug an external monitor, if she wants to plug in and charge it, she's gonna have to figure out how to. Not figure out. I'm gonna have to buy her an adapter, right? With this newer MacBook Air, if I would have waited, I probably could have got her this one with 2 Thunderbolt ports. So all that to say, you're getting lighter, faster. No, not lighter. You mentioned it. I think it's the same size as it's the same weight rather as the current MacBook Air, but you get all this new technology for the same price. So I guess if you're in the market for a MacBook Air, why wouldn't you get this, right? Especially with this new M1 chip rather. So all right, moving on to the next thing that Apple announced that they announced a MacBook Pro as well. So for the people who have to do the extra video editing, the developing, all that high end stuff that us regular folks don't have to do. MacBook Pro has the M1 chip as well. Again, the same price as the current model at starting at $1299. Of course, price goes up if you add more terabytes of storage, if you add up to 16 gigs of RAM. Oh, that's something that I didn't mention on the Air that I will go ahead and mention now. The maximum is 16 gigs of RAM, and that's something that we mentioned with the M1 chip. So that'll be interesting to see if people take that. But nevertheless, according to Apple, you don't need any more than 16 gigs
with this new chip,
right? Because they've added all the 8 cores, twice 5 times faster graphics performance on the MacBook Pro, a 16-core neural engine as opposed to 8-core on the MacBook Air, which adds up to 11 times faster ML performance, which is machine learning performance. Of course, the MacBook Pro comes with macOS Big Sur, adds all the features and protection and the app portability for creating iPhone and iPad apps and knowing that those will be compatible with the MacBook Pro. Up to 20 hours of battery life, which is, according to Apple, the longest in a Mac ever. Again, up to a 2 terabyte storage, which adds up to 3.3 gigabits per second of speeds. Let's see, it has the M1 protection chip, the protection layer on the actual chip. It has the Retina display on the MacBook Pro. 500 nits of brilliance. I'm not sure what a nit is. I'm assuming that's some sort of measurement of light. Right. That's what we're going to call it. 25% more colors than sRGB and a view that adjusts to your environment. One of the things that I thought was pretty cool that the MacBook Pro comes with, especially in this new work from home, remote learning, Zoom, era that we're in, the FaceTime HD camera. It has a 720p front end camera on the front facing camera for HD video calls. So you won't necessarily have to go scramble to find a high end camera as an accessory. It'll have a 720p.
Like me when we flipped over to all this.
Right.
From home and everything. I had to try and scrounge and find a good camera.
Right. So, you've got that crispy 720p HD camera, and it has a 3 mic array. So you'll get pickup of audio a little bit better. So you're not scrambling to get headphones and mics and all this stuff. You can just, if you need to hop on a quick call with the MacBook Pro, you can do that with crispy video and audio. So, of course, all that, again, like I mentioned, Touch ID with all the password protections using Apple Pay, still has a touch bar. I use the touch bar on my current MacBook Pro. I find it useful, not all the time, but it's handy having that there. I know a lot of people, kind of griped about the touch bar, but I think I like it, and it's here to stay. So it's in the current MacBook Pro. Again, it has Wi-Fi 6 technology with 1.2 gigabits per second throughput. It has 4 US Thunderbolt ports, so 2 on each side. You can connect 6K external display, all that good stuff. Again, like I mentioned, starting at the regular price of $12.99. So it is only a 13-inch. So I guess I wanted to ask you, what do you think about this? Because I know you mentioned you were maybe in the market for a replacement MacBook Pro. So considering the fact that this is brand new, right up your alley, but it may be, what do you think about it?
So I'm definitely in the market for a new MacBook Pro. It's time for an upgrade for me. And I was really looking forward to Apple Silicon as we previously knew it, which we now know is the M1 chip. My plan was to wait for the new, whatever the Apple Silicon laptops were going to be, and then I was going to buy the most recent version below that because I was assuming a price drop. Not knowing that the Apple Silicon, laptops were going to be in the same price range. So when I saw the prices on the announcement, I was like, whoa, a bit taken aback because I assumed new chip, higher price. So my interest was definitely peaked. The only thing is I'm now on a 13 inch and I want a larger screen.
Okay.
I want the bigger screen. So while I am intrigued, I think I am going to wait for the next release. And as I mentioned earlier, I think by fall of 2022, they should have their full line all
The M1 chip.
on the M1 chip.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what the rollout will be. Since they just announced the 13 inch this month, I'm assuming maybe the first announcement we get for 2021 might be the larger screen.
Right.
The larger screen one.
I hope so.
I hope.
If I remember correctly, I think in March is when they announced iPads, and if I'm correct, hopefully I'm wrong. Around WWDC, it may be when they'll do, because that's when they announced the new operating system. I can't.
So March, June,
Yeah.
and then what, September, and then late fall.
Right.
The typical one more thing. So
All right, so we'll see. I'm definitely interested in a 15 inch as well. My current MacBook is circa 2017, and it's been kicking just fine, has no issues. So I'm not in a hurry to downgrade just for the sake of getting M1. I'll definitely wait. By that time, they will have worked out all of the kinks of the M1 processor. They will be Apple will have been able to dispel some of the questions or answered some of the questions that some of the developers, some of the people have with, why not going to 32 or 64 gigs of RAM? Why not being able to connect a external GPU, so on and so forth. And then the whole thing with the, being able to port Intel apps over to the M1 chip, so on and so forth. So by the time I'm ready, they'll have all that worked out. So another correction I wanted to fix myself: the MacBook Pro that I'm reading, it only has 2 Thunderbolt ports. My current Mac has 4. So maybe when the 15 inch comes out,
because the larger,
right? Okay, okay. But
yeah.
I did say the 13 inch had 4 out the jump. I stand corrected. There's only 2. So we'll see if the bigger one has the additional ports, which most likely will. So just wanted to put that out there. So that is it for the MacBook Pro 13 inch. The last device that was announced, which again, all of these are available for pre-order now, which by the time you're listening to this will be the next, you'll have 1 week before they actually start shipping. So at the time you're hearing this, you can pre-order any of these devices now. So let's get into the third one. It is the Mac Mini. So this is the standalone desktop one. I think everybody loves the Mac Mini for all the different things it can do and all the things we use it for. So they, of course, when they announced the M1 chip, they actually sent out Mac Minis to developers with the chip in it, so they can actually test and create their apps to make sure they're compatible. So I guess they're making that available to us, the regular folks, now. So again, same thing with the Mac Mini. It has the Apple M1 chip. It's going to make it faster processor, faster, neural engine. Again, with the Mac Mini, you get the 8-core CPU. You get the up to 6 times faster graphics performance, 16-core neural engine with up to 15 times faster ML, which is machine learning performance. Again, of course, the Mac Mini will also come with macOS Big Sur. All the things that I've mentioned before. You can get up to 16 gigs of RAM. Again, we'll see what people think about that later, as time will tell. You can get up to a 2 terabyte SSD in the Mac Mini. Again, this is their desktop, so you can pair it with their, all the Apple gadgets. Hopefully, if you got all the money for that $1,000 Apple display,
XDR.
yeah, more power to you. But you can definitely add that on to this Mac Mini, or you can do what I do is I've got an old Mac Mini that it's headless. I'd have no monitor connected to it. I just use VNC and actually use my computer to log into that to see. So one of the things that a lot of people, I noticed people had issues about with this new Mac Mini that just came out, the lack of Thunderbolt ports. I think they took a couple of Thunderbolt ports off of this Mac Mini. So now you get an Ethernet port, you get 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, you get 1 HDMI 2.0, and you get 2 USB-A. I think that's 3.0. I think. I can't remember, but it's USB-A, and you get a headphone jack in the back of the Mac Mini. So we'll see. Again, the jury will be out on whether or not the lack of USB or Thunderbolt ports on this new model will be an issue. We'll see. Again, Wi-Fi 6 with this, up to 1.2 gigabits per second throughput, and all for the same price. Actually, $100 cheaper.
$100 less.
Right, on this entry level Mac Mini at $699. So again, I remember you mentioning that you actually use your Mac Mini to actually edit the show. So what do you think about this new Mac Mini that they just announced?
Yeah, Mac Mini, it's a little workhorse. I use the Mac Mini for recording the show and editing the show. When I use it for some development as well. If I need, a nice big screen and I don't want to have to, connect the laptop to it. So it's a little workhorse, and I think it's pretty dope. I think people are used to just the laptops from Apple, but if you need a desktop, it's compact, it's small, it's powerful. And if you're in the market for one, I mean, again, it's $100 less than the previous versions. So I think it's thinner as well.
Right.
So,
Yes, it is.
So you can't really, if you're in the market for and you don't have and even if you don't have a lot of space, it's a great little device. And so
Right.
I'm, again, based on what the benchmarks are and what the performance is, if it lives up to what we're expecting from this chip, then I think you're going to be in for a treat.
All right. So like I mentioned, all 3 of these devices, the new MacBook Air, the new MacBook Pro, and the new Mac Mini, are all available for pre-order now, and they will be shipping next week. So definitely let us know if you're interested in getting one of those. If you do get one, check in, let us know. What do you think about only having 16 gigs maximum? Let us know what you think about having less ports. Let us know about this new N1 chip. Do you see a difference, or can you tell at all? Let us know. All right. So before I move off of the Apple event, one of the things I wanted to mention as an aside is the fact that Apple still didn't mention any sort of AirPods Studio or the AirTags. And the only reason why I mention that is because all leading up to this stuff, we've done it multiple times on this show to where we've got new rumor alert, right, of all this new features and technology with these AirPods Studio or these AirTags, which were not announced. You would think that Apple will have announced them at least now to get ready for Black Friday and Christmas and holiday shopping, but they are either A, holding this one under wraps because they want to make sure it's right before they roll it out, or 2, it doesn't exist. So I guess,
or 3, they don't need an announcement, they're just going to drop it.
Right. I'd be curious to see if they do that, but all that to say,
I don't think so, because I think there's going to need to be some sort of explanation
right
around these AirTags. So
right. Well,
if there is such a thing.
Right. So, I mean, I say if there's such a thing because, again, there's been so much rumors reported about it. All these analysts, all these people have, quoted sources to say it's going to look like this and it's going to do that and it's going to do this, that, and the other and the third, right? But, Apple has remained tight-lipped on this, so much so that, again, it leads me to wonder if this thing exists because, like we mentioned before, multiple times on this show, the Air Power Mat, Apple announced this gadget, this device that could charge multiple mobile devices, smart charge, and all this good stuff. They announced it at an event. They had it on the back of some of the packaging. For whatever reason, we couldn't get a firm word from them, but for whatever reason, the Air Power Mat no longer exists. So again, I'm thinking maybe Apple is either waiting to get this thing perfect before they even announce it, because I would think they would have announced it and said coming March 2021 or whatever. They haven't even said that. So I'm thinking that maybe they've learned their lesson and they're not going to announce something before it's actually cooked. Or two, again, does it exist? I don't know. I mean, Apple hasn't said anything. We're just going off of analyst rumors, and analysts have been wrong in the past. I mean, do you think these things exist? I guess is the question.
I want to say that they mentioned them being Apple, that these were going to be a thing. I could be wrong, but I thought that they said that these were a thing.
Okay.
I don't know, but it could, I don't know, because it's been so much. These things have been talked about. It feels like forever, and then there hasn't been anything that has really materialized from it. So I don't know. I know we talked last week that there's that we could be getting a new iPad Pro Q1. So I don't know if they are waiting for that, because I'm trying to think of what else they could possibly announce for an iPad event. So I don't know if they're holding off on these AirTags and the AirPods Studio for that, because I don't know what else they could announce.
Where they can announce it. Maybe I'm thinking in March, like you mentioned, in March when they announce a new iPad, maybe a new Apple Pencil, maybe, I don't know. But around that time, I guess they could squeeze in, these AirTags, which the AirTags make sense, right? Because if they're, me and Nika were on the Daily Tech News show yesterday with Tom Merritt and Sarah and all those folks. And he mentioned that, Apple specifically built in this technology to support AirTags in the current iPhone 12 lineup. So for them not to actually add that to their lineup to enable millions of iPhone devices to be able to talk to these AirTags, to where if we're following the rumors correctly, they are tile-like competitors, to where you can put it in your purse, put it in your luggage, put it in your backpack, and at the, open up your iPhone, and it uses this crowdsourcing technology to actually locate your devices in the real world. I mean, that's something that Apple could easily do, again, which leads me to wonder, if it's so easy for them to do, why haven't they done it yet? Right?
And I think it may be along the lines of what we saw at the Air Power Mat. I think they looked at it and said, yes, we could do it, but I think they oversold it, because the thing with the Air Power Mat is you have other, devices out there that you can lay multiple devices on and charge them. But what the upsell from Apple was is you can put it anywhere on the Air Power Mat. You don't have to put it in a specific location. And then with the power distribution, it can tell when your iPhone is 100% in it, and it redistributes the power from that over to your your AirPods, because it's behind on the charging. Say you had 0% on your AirPods Pro, so it'll shift that power distribution. I think they just oversold it, and they weren't able to deliver on all of that functionality that would separate itself from some of the other charging mats that were out there. And I think it may be the same thing with these AirTags, because you can put an AirTag on individual devices. So like, say I have an iPhone, I have AirPods, I have an iPad Pro, and I have a laptop. That's 4 devices. I have more than that, but those are the main 4, that I use on a daily basis. So if I put an AirTag on all of those, it has to be able to track each individual device. And if you multiply that by millions of people, that's a lot to try and track and contend with. So I think maybe they bit off more than they could chew, or it was an oversell similar to the Air Power Mat, and they're just trying to get it perfect because they've already been burned by the Air Power Mat.
All right. So, well, like I said, time will tell. Jury's still out on whether or not either of these devices, the AirPods Studio, the over-the-ear AirPods or the AirTags even exist. But again, like I said, I think at the very least, Apple learned their lesson and said, we're not going to announce anything until it's cooked, right?
Yeah.
All right. So that is it for the One More Thing event, Apple's last event for 2020. We're looking forward to, some other things coming next year. So we'll see if these devices exist and what's to come for, the next level of this M1 error, I guess, for Apple. All right.
Yep.
So I guess some other things I want to talk about before we move off of Apple news is Apple has rolled out privacy-focused app labels. So basically what these are is you think of, nutrition labels. You go to the grocery store, you take, pull something off the shelf. You want to see how many calories it has, how much fat, sodium, so on and so forth. So think of that and translate that to a app label for an app you're looking to download. You go to the App Store, you go in to download an app. You want to see specifically what this app is going to require of me, specifically my data, right? So you can actually, on these app labels, you'll be able to see any data that's linked to you. For instance, financial info, contacts, browsing history, location, purchases, identifiers. With these labels, you'll be able to see exactly what apps are asking for what kind of data. Specifically, additionally, you can ask for data that's used to track you. So contact info, identifiers, or any sort of location. So basically what these app identifiers are, again, like I said, you're interested in downloading an app, but you're not sure what this app is taking. Is it going to is it going to ask for my contacts? Is it going to ask for browsing history? Is it going to store that somewhere? These app labels will be what the app is requiring of you and or your data. And I'm assuming that these app developers will have to disclose all this data, and that third-party partners collect, including contact information, health and fitness, financial info, location, sensitive info, contacts, user content, browser history, search history, identifiers, purchases, usage data, and diagnostics. So developers are going to have to disclose that information, so you'll know upfront whether or not you want to, download it and potentially give up your information. We've talked about data privacy. So again, Apple is the head honcho as it relates to data. So seems like a logical next step for Apple. But I guess I just want to get your feedback. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is going to scare developers into creating apps for the App Store if they have to also disclose what they're going to use your data for? Or do you think this will be a win for your average consumer?
I think it's definitely a win for the average consumer. What it's doing is pulling back the veil on what is actually going on with your data. A lot of times people go to websites and it's like, oh, we're doing tracking your cookies, approve if you want to keep using this website.
Right.
You say, okay, yeah, because I want to use the website. I don't think in the grand scheme of things, it will affect a lot of what people download as far as apps. You have it now. How many times do you get a license agreement, end-user license agreement? You don't read that stuff. You just, because now, before, you could just click agree. Now, just to, I guess, cover themselves, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom in order to get the button to enable so you can check it.
Right.
So they're saying you scroll to the bottom, you look through all the data, so that's your sign off. So people, I don't think the average consumer will honestly care. If this is an app that they want, they're going to go ahead and download. That may seem like, oh man, yeah. But I don't think that they will, say, no, I'm not going to download this app or install this app because of the type of data that it's tracking. This is the app that I want, and I'm going to go ahead and download it. And, it is, they already have my information anyway. Those type of things. So I think what Apple is doing is lifting the veil for folks who really do care about this type of thing. And I think it's helping to keep the accountability not only just on the developers, but on Apple as well. So if there is some sort of breach or some sort of information exchange, they can say, we provided you the tools.
We told you so.
all the tools to let you know what you were giving up by downloading this app. The app developer gave you everything that you needed to know about what was going to go on with your data. You decided to still download this app. So the culpability is pretty much is not on us. We put the onus on you to make the decisions about what you want your private digital life to be. It's one of those things
Right.
where with smoking, we told you all the bad stuff about smoking. It gives you cancer, it, takes, makes your teeth fall out, ages you all. We told you all those things. We gave you these big blinking, bold warnings, and you still chose to smoke. Well, we're giving you all these app labels. We're telling you every single thing that will be collected and how it's going to be used, and you still chose to double click and download the app. So we gave you the information. How you use it at the end of the day is up to you. So I think more than anything, it's one of those things where I think Apple does care about their customers and their data, but at the end of the day, we told you what was going on, what the deal is. We gave you everything we could possibly give you. Now you have to make your own informed decision. It's your own choice. So
Right. And I think it puts the honest, or it keeps the developers honest, because if you have to tell them what you're collecting, then if something comes out that you are collecting, additional information outside of this, then of course developers are on the hook for that. But also, it gives the developers an out, right? Because many of tech story has been written about. You think of the face game apps, to where they the I can't think of the name of it, face app or whatever the case may be, to where you took a bunch of pictures, and then you could age yourself. Remember that was going on like a year or so ago, to where you can make yourself look older, make yourself look younger.
App, yeah.
Right. Come to find out, they were collecting all that data, and it turned out to be, Russian companies, so on and so. And then everybody, all the tech journalists, and everybody's like, well, whatever. Right. So, now, if an app wants to do that, they have to let you know up front. One, it keeps them honest, and two, they can't. There'll be no expose. No tech journalist is gonna uncover this hidden agenda. Well, they put it in the actual app label that we're collecting your contacts. We're going to collect your browser history. We're going to collect your location. We're going to see your purchases, and we're going to possibly get some identifiers from you, like how old you are, where you live, so on and so forth. So we can't say we weren't going to take that stuff. We put it in the label. We were going to take that stuff. So relax. Right. All right.
You made your own decision.
Right. All right. So another thing I wanted to let people know about is iOS released iOS 14.2, which patches some serious security holes, and you get a bunch of emoji. I think a lot of the tech stories that I saw, they put the front of the information was you get 100 new emoji, new wallpapers, and it patches some security holes.
And by the way, we fixed some issues.
Right. So let me get this story to talk about the specific security clauses. Hold on, let me find it here. House blah blah blah, whatever. Let me find that other story. I'm gonna find another story.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, who picks out these emojis? Because I'm looking at some of the ones that are supposed to come out with, and these don't really mean. I mean, these aren't the emojis that I need in my life.
Right. Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with these?
All right. So let's see. So there were three. That's one of Apple patches 3 actively exploited 0-day flaws. The vulnerabilities, which are all being abused for targeted attacks, affect a long list of devices. Apple is aware of these reports, and this is what the patch was about. Let me see if I can find Apple. So this is a tweet from somebody who confirmed Apple fixed these patches. Apple has fixed 3 issues reported by Project Zero. I think that is a company that their sole purpose, or what they're known for, is finding some of these exploits that Apple, Microsoft, Google, when they put out new hardware, new software. This Project Zero, I think, I think Project Zero, as a matter of fact, I think it's an arm of Google that reports, of course, on other competitors. Other competitors' updates. So this tweet says Apple has fixed three issues reported by Project Zero that were being actively exploited in the wild. CVE 2020, a bunch of other numbers, a memory leak, CVE 2020 27932, which is a kernel privilege escalation, so on and so forth. So basically, these vulnerabilities is a remote code execution flaw that could be triggered by the processing of a maliciously crafted font, potentially allowing an attacker to launch a attack remotely. So I don't know about you, but processing a maliciously crafted font, potentially allowing a attacker to launch an attack remotely, that sounds pretty serious. I mean, yikes. Right? So the second flaw resides in the kernel and is described as a kernel memory leak flaw. An attacker could exploit it by creating a malicious application to disclose a kernel memory. Exploitation needs to happen locally and requires a single authentication. So again, that sounds serious, to where once you've given this thing access one time, it can trigger off this malicious application. The third 0-day bug is a kernel privilege escalation vulnerability. A malicious application may be able to execute arbitrary code with kernel privileges, Apple warned. So I'm not a techie dude to where security and all at kernels, and that sounds pretty serious, right? Enough to where I am.
That's not good.
Right. I'm surprised that I actually had to dig to find these updates in iOS 14.2, because all of the stories I saw was Apple rolls out new emoji.
Right. And the thing with the kernels is, if you have someone that can launch an attack at that level, they are supremely gifted, hackers and well versed in the architecture of devices. So if you give that type of person that type of access, the damage that they can do is pretty significant. If they can get down to that level and launch an attack, trust and believe that attack is going to be significant. It's not going to just be, oh, let me get your contacts. It's going to be some significant, damage that can be done.
Yeah. So
glad they're fixing that.
Yeah. So they've patched that in 14.2, and you got some emojis. All right. So the last story I wanted to talk about, we talked about the Air Power Mat and the fact that Apple kind of punted on that whole idea, but they did come out with something called a MagSafe Duo, which basically is a mat of sorts to where you can charge your iPhone and your Apple Watch, or your wireless AirPods and your Apple Watch. You can just charge those two things. It's a nice little mat that can fold up to where you can travel, put it in a book bag, in a backpack. But I thought what was surprising about this MagSafe Duo was the price, right? Because I would have thought the Air Power Mat, the price was about $199, but with the Air Power Mat, according to Apple, before they punted on it, did all this smart charging, redistribute, blah, 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 blah. So you would think at $199 it does all that. Well, this MagSafe Duo Charger costs $149, and all it does is it folds. So I'm curious.
They are out of their ever-loving mind charging $130 for this thing. What the world?
Right.
Who's buying this?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I said $150. It's actually $130. So a little bit cheaper, but at $130, the fact that it can fold up and you can put it in a bag, we'll see, because you can get a separate Apple Watch dock for like I have to look it up, and you can get a MagSafe separately, and it won't cost $130. I'm not sure how much the dock for the Apple Watch dock costs. Let me look it up. Let me see. Apple Watch dock. Let me see.
Didn't they put the price in the article? Because they were adding it. They were adding it up in the article, I thought.
Oh, were they? Did they add it up? Okay, let me.
Yeah. So a regular MagSafe charger costs $40. Apple Watch chargers, either USB A or C, cost $30.
Right.
And if you bought a brick for each, that's $110.
Right.
So they're essentially saying you could buy all of the individual pieces that make up what would be able to be charged with this MagSafe,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still $20 less.
All right. All right. So I guess the question for you is this MagSafe Duo something on your Christmas list that you're gonna
No,
no?
I could buy a whole HomePod Mini for that and still have some change left
You
over.
sure could. If I had a choice, I would definitely choose a home. What is it? The mini?
HomePod Mini.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
HomePod Mini and a MagSafe charger, right, for 130
Oh,
bucks. All right. So yeah, but for those who are interested, all in
if you
one,
got it like that, I
right?
mean,
It's all.
hey,
But
do you?
but again, I think we are chagrining or guffawing or whatever you want to call it at the price of this accessory when you can make that same case for most of Apple's products. So I don't want to be hypocritical and say this is cost too much when I've got a $1,200 iPhone that I'm going to pick up on Friday. There's
And
no
I already got mine.
right, right. So that same argument can be made for most of Apple's products, but it seems like a lot. Maybe it's just me, but we'll keep it moving. Let you
It seems
go.
it seems like a lot for what you're getting.
All
Yeah.
right. All right, so that's all we got for Apple News. We're going to move into second string where we talk tech in general. It seems like there are a lot of people who did not agree with the latest election and are deciding that they're going to voice their opinions someplace else other than Facebook. I think a lot of the people who wanted Trump to win are upset by the thought or the idea or the notion that the election was stolen or rigged. And they are also additionally upset that social media outlets like Facebook, particularly Twitter, is quote unquote suppressing free
Their
speech
First Amendment rights.
by discussing specifically when Donald Trump would put out some of his information on Twitter, and Twitter would actually put like a label or a caption on his statement that says this may or may not be true, here are the real facts, so on and so forth. So I think a lot of Trump supporters don't really like that all that much and have decided to go to this new app called Parler, to where they can actually, according to this app, it's supposed to be some sort of free community to where you can voice any and all opinions, and it's user user controlled, to where if users feel like this violates some sort of policy, then the community will then step in and kick this person out or ban them. But pretty much you won't get any of the restrictions, you won't get any of the negative backlash from the developers or owners of this particular app, particular apps that you normally would experience on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And it's supposed to be this new safe haven for people to express freedom of thought. And it seems like the majority of the users for this new Parler app are Trump/Republican sympathizers. So I just wanted to ask you about, what do you think about this new social media app that has turned into the safe haven for these people who have felt slighted in recent weeks as a result of this election, and they're deciding to take their ball and go home? What do you think about this?
I have one word for these people. Biden. Go over there. Nobody's stopping you. Please stop assaulting us.
Right.
Our minds and our eyes with all this nonsense. Go on over there and have y'all's own little pity party and talk to each other. Okay, go bye.
Right.
That's all I got.
Right. Yeah. So I just think I guess hypocritical, to where when people who had concerns or issues about some of the things Trump was saying throughout this his first his only term as president. You know, a lot of
Return.
right, a lot of the people who sympathized or who followed that ideology was like, you know, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. You know,
Go
stop.
to another
Right,
country.
stop being a snowflake. You know, I think some of the terms that they were saying, and now,
Invalids.
right. So all the things, you know, all of the insults they lobbed at people, you know, who kind of felt didn't like the way this administration was running the country. You know, now tables have turned, and now they feel slighted some sort of way. Well, I guess my only suggestion is it's like, well, welcome to the party. That's my thoughts of all this. I'm like, don't leave. We didn't when people who had a problem with the way this country is being run, we would go to Facebook, we would go to Twitter, we'd go to all these social media platforms, and we would say all our things. Those people would jump in and say, you know, difference of opinion. At the least, at the most, you're being a snowflake. You know, so now y'all got to take it too. Don't leave. My suggestion is don't leave. Y'all got to stand there and take it for the next umpteen, however long, you know, however long this Biden upcoming term, 2 terms, whatever, you know, however long the Democrats are in power, or, you know, the opposing side, take it. It's the same way, you know, you felt free on some of these platforms prior to now to say it. So that's my
Yeah, and it truly shows that they are the snowflakes. They can dish it out, but they can't take it.
right.
The exact same things when Stacey Abrams didn't want to concede. They called her all sorts of names. She just needs to accept the results. These are what they are. She's being a sore loser. But now the tables have turned.
Right.
We have to fight. Why we can't just accept these. We have to. No one is surprised by this because a bunch of these people are, toddlers. And I hate to offend toddlers,
Right.
but that's what they are. And when it's their turn, because everything is cyclical, it's going to come back because of the nature of our
How things
current
work.
environment,
Yep.
how things work. But when they are on top, everyone else is just being special. And if you don't like it here, or you don't like our election process, or you don't like our leadership, go to a different country, go back to where you came from. Same can be said now, but when you do that, they start whining and crying, and you're trying to suppress my rights. No, it wasn't you. You weren't saying that when it was on the opposite end. And this whole thing of you need to empathize with, you need to, when you lost, when your side lost and Hillary Clinton lost and everyone was sad, blah 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 blah, now there it's on there. No, there's a huge difference. These folks voted for a racist.
Right.
They voted for a person who has allowed the death of over 230,000 people. It's not the
Right.
same.
Right. It's
It's
not a
not the
it's not a
same.
difference of opinion. Right.
It's not a difference of opinion. And being racism is not a difference of an opinion that I can come back to. And they want this whole unity thing, but unity without any sort of acknowledgement of
Or
wrongness
accountability. Right.
or accountability. It's not unity.
Right.
It's just still one side having to continue to suffer to make the other side feel better, when we've seen now that they don't want that.
Right.
They choose war.
Which is one of the reasons why this app is so popular, is because, you claim you want unity, you claim to agree to disagree, but when, you feel slighted, it's all of a sudden we've got to go our own way to do our own thing on this new app. So I'm not sure if this Parler app was specifically designed for these groups, but these groups are the ones who are surging up these, downloads. I think they had 2 million downloads in the past couple of days, I read in one of the stories. So obviously, people want some place to vent and feel free to, I guess, be racist. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess.
and the only concern that I have is, they don't need apps to do this, but it's just more breeding grounds to
Radicalization. Right.
radicalize and encourage more domestic terrorism.
Right.
Because most of these quote unquote malicious. They are not malicious. They are domestic terrorists.
Right.
Call a spade a spade. That's what they are. And my fear is that it's just going to be another breeding ground for that,
Right.
because Facebook has finally, and all of these news organizations have finally done what they should have done 5 years
It's
ago.
clamped down.
They're clamping down. They're calling things to the carpet, and they're calling out the lies, and they aren't calling them mistruths or racial. What was the term that was one of their favorite racial? Oh crap, I can't remember. But instead of calling it racist, they had a more palatable meaning to white people
Right.
word for racism, because I'm even now I'm just they call being called a racist because I'm voting for Donald Trump, who is a racist.
Right.
It just hurts my feelings.
Right.
No, it's time, and if anything, it's what it's shown is time out for that, and people aren't standing for that anymore. You are racist if you support
Right.
the policies of a racist.
Right.
There's no way to mince words about it.
Right.
I mean, fight me. No, don't fight me. Fight your mama.
Right.
Because what I'm saying is, you are choosing. It's if it's a one. It's I don't like what he says, but it's because of it's not fiscal responsibility, because he's giving all the rich people a tax break.
Right.
He's not taking their health care. Okay, it's just a problem.
So all that to say, now they have a place to air their grievances. So maybe that'll make, I don't know, separate but equal, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, but like I said, they are a new popular app for whatever reason, and I guess they could be proud of that, but we'll see how that turns out. So, all right. So I guess the last thing I want to talk about in the second stream is Uber will now let users book rides 30 days in advance and pick a favorite driver. So this is for those, Uber drivers who love their job and they get all of these, 5 stars and positive reviews, to where if you see yourself in a habit of every, week or multiple times a week or whatever your schedule is, if you're noticing a pattern to where you're doing the same routine, the same trip, then Uber's now letting you reserve that trip farther in advance, up to 30 days in advance, and you can pick your favorite driver. So, I mean, I guess definitely you can also, if you are an Uber driver and you use Uber as your primary source of income, then you can even further establish a clientele by being able to have, Uber users be able to select you as their favorite driver. So this new option called Uber Reserve, which will begin to show up on the app in the next week, is designed for users who want to book a ride at least 2 hours in advance. Uber said it will keep its current schedule a ride option for those trips that fall under 2 hours in advance timeline. And according to Uber, quote, "While saving you time lays at the heart of your service, we wanted to take this idea to the next level by building mobility features that more flexibly fit around your life," said Holly Beasley, operations lead at Uber. So riders who use a reserve feature will be shown their fare upfront and be matched to a driver ahead of the trip. The company has also folded in a favorite driver option. Riders can now add favorite drivers to their app. Once they select the reserve features, riders will have the option to select one of their favorite drivers. These favorite drivers will be offered to them first. Uber stressed that drivers aren't penalized for opting not to take the ride. So it's been a while since I've taken an Uber, even before COVID, but I guess, what do you think about this new feature? Is this something that will benefit drivers to where they feel more like, like this is their business,
like
or
a car service?
Right. Yep.
I get it, and I don't know how it will work, but mine automatically went to like surging. So like, say New Year's, if you're out for New Year's and you book your ride, in advance, and they give you your price, and then like, say it's 12:30 on New Year's Day AM, after you've did your little celebratory things and you're ready to go home. If you reserved your ride 2 days in advance, are you exempt from those surge prices?
That's a good question.
Oh.
I don't know if they mentioned that, but what I saw they did mention was, even though this feature rather was being developed prior to COVID, I can definitely see this as a benefit if you only want to use one driver, right? If you want to still,
Mm-hmm.
you've rode with this driver and you trust that they are social distancing, you trust that they're keeping their environment clean, you trust that you've seen that they're wearing a mask, they're practicing all the things that you're supposed to do with COVID, then this is definitely a benefit to where I want that guy every single time. I don't want some new person who doesn't follow the procedures or whatever the case may be. So I definitely think, there's a benefit for that, to where, going back into your thought, if surging wasn't included or excluded from this, I'll take that. I'll pay for the extra surge if in fact I know I'm gonna get the same amount of service every single time, right, from the same driver.
Yeah. And I think it also addresses some of the issues that Uber had with sexual assault and
Right,
harassment.
right,
If, as a woman, those are things that I have to think of whenever I'm booking a ride
right,
is whose car am I getting into?
right.
Is it one of those things where I need to, make sure I drop my location to someone or
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. But if you have a driver that you're comfortable with and you know that's safe, then you'll want to book that same driver. So
Right.
I think, now the more that I'm thinking about it, I think this may actually be a pretty good thing for both sides, the driver and the passenger.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, definitely, a positive, to turn the favor in Uber's favor, right? Because over the past couple of years, they have been, kind of kicked, around, with some of their policies and some of the things they did. But I mean, this is one of the things to where they definitely are trying to show that, they can be trusted, in all. So I think this is a good benefit towards that. All right, so that is it for second string. We're gonna move into for the culture, and I saw this story and I was like, oh yeah, Nika will definitely like this one. So
Yep.
Beyonce has teamed up with Peloton, the popular bike, and I think they also have a. Do they have a treadmill? I think they even have a treadmill. Well, so one of the most popular playlists, one of the most popular music requests ever on Peloton was Beyonce, of course. So,
Of course.
Beyonce is, according to the story, Beyonce is a Peloton member, and she is the most requested artist on our platform. Over time, we developed a series of classes that exclusively feature the artist catalog with everyone from Dolly Parton and Jennifer Lopez. Our members love them, so we started to think and talk about how we could build upon the series and make it even more impactful. So the Beyonce X Peloton collaboration includes a social component to the partnership by committing Peloton digital memberships to 10 HBCUs, providing an access to a full library of fitness classes through the Peloton app that can be used with or without equipment. This continues Beyonce's commitment to HBCUs and Peloton's anti-racist company pledge. Quote, a part of that pledge includes improving cultural access to health and fitness across communities, and this is something that means so much to Peloton as an organization. So, all that to say, in addition to people just loving Beyonce and they want to hear and sweat to Beyonce, this is actually a social benefit to HBCU. So it's one thing just for Beyonce just to put her name on this thing, but she's actually, benefiting, some of the she's putting more money where her mouth is and putting her brand, her name behind social justice. So I just wanted to
Right.
get your opinions or thoughts on this.
This is celebrity gone right.
Right.
Because not only is Beyonce bringing more visibility, I think their stocks went up quite a bit once this was announced. So it's benefiting multiple people. So, one, Beyonce is a businesswoman. She's going to get her money.
Right.
So she's going to get her money from the streams of her
Right.
music.
That's what I was
So
going
it's
to say.
benefiting her.
Right.
Yep. It's benefiting Peloton because they are getting positive publicity. They are
Beyonce's
getting more
vouching for
people
him.
to come. Yeah, Beyonce's vouching for them. They're getting more people to come into their ecosystem because Peloton, of course, they're known for the bikes, but their app has all sorts of workouts. They
Mm-hmm.
have like hip hop dancing, they
Mm-hmm.
have um, cardio, they have yoga, of course, they have the bike. So you can go on the app and do, traditional type of workouts as well. And the third component is not only is it bringing visibility to these 10 HBCUs and it's increasing the health in minority communities, the biggest component is that Peloton has agreed to extend the relationship with HBCUs beyond just the health benefits. They are going to also include long-term recruiting partnership
Okay.
for both internships and for undergraduate students once
Okay.
they get ready to graduate. So it's a win-win-win. Peloton wins, Beyonce wins, and the students win.
All
So
right.
I think it's just a fantastic way of using celebrity and using branding. And, I think it's just more of her leaning into, her philanthropic arm
Right.
called Be Good.
And using her
And she's
name.
been pouring into
Yep.
using her name and
Mm-hmm.
she's been pouring into HBCUs for quite a while now, especially with, the when she did Homecoming, because Homecoming,
Was an
many
ode
people
to
can enjoy
HBCUs.
it,
Yep.
but it's HBCU Black people centric because even if you didn't go to a HBCU, you went to the ball games, you went to the Battle of the Bands.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew the HBCUs because in our community, that's what that was specifically for us when we were excluded
Mm-hmm.
from going to PWIs or
Predominantly white.
primarily white
You're right.
institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had to create our own college sector to go into. So that's something that Black people hold very near and dear to our heart because it was a way for us to,
Belong.
elevate,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, as a community, as well as be able to be the next generation of, middle class, upper class, individuals get education and access that we didn't previously have. And so the students will have, I think it's a 2-year membership
Mm-hmm.
um, to the app, and the digital memberships will go to students at Bennett College, Clark Atlanta University, Grambling State University, Hampton University, Howard University, Morehouse College, and Morehouse School of Medicine, and Spelman College, Texas Southern University, and Wilberforce University, all by the end of November.
Right.
And that whole list of colleges that I named, all of the HBCUs in Atlanta City, known collectively as the AUC, are all included in that. So I think that's fantastic for
All right.
our state specifically. So I
And
think it's fantastic.
and now that I think about it, this is a preemptive strike again against Apple Fitness Plus. I hate to say it, but
Oh yeah.
because Peloton is they jumped out. There were other fitness apps and there were other fitness memberships before Peloton, but Peloton kind of came out and stole the thunder, and that kind of put all of them on notice. So now you see Nordic Track and some of these other ones are starting to not necessarily catch up, but they're starting to recognize what people want and what's popular. And then here comes Apple with this whole Fitness Plus. We've got Apple
We got
TVs. Well, not just that. We've already got the equipment for the most part. We got Apple Watches, we got iPhones, we got iPads, Apple TV. All I got to do is I'm already paying for 50 million thousand Apple subscriptions. Why not add this other one? But the Apple Music don't have the Beyonce connection, right? So maybe, and the fact that she's using this for philanthropic means and it's going to HBCU, so it kind of hits different, right? When you're using Peloton, especially have a black person that went to an HBCU,
It's extra pride.
right, like I said, a black person that went to an HBCU that also loves Beyonce. If you get them decide between a Peloton membership and Apple Music or Nordic Track or Adidas or some of these other ones,
They're going with Beyonce.
they might choose Beyonce. So all that to say, Apple Fitness Plus still hasn't been launched yet, but again, in that darkness, Peloton is trying to make the moves to make sure they stay on top. So I guess hats off to
Yeah.
them. This is a preemptive
Yeah, they
strike.
had the foresight
Right.
for them.
All right. All right. That is it for the culture. The hookup for this week. I guess I did I spill the beans already? No. In the pre-show, I talked about how I'm going to get the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So one of the tips I wanted to let you know that traditionally folks either did a pre-order and had the device shipped to their house, or they didn't pre-order and went to the Apple Store first thing in the morning, stood in line in hopes that the Apple Store would have enough product in order for you to get one. And then, on launch day, right? Well, I found out a happy medium that I didn't know about, to where you can actually go through all the steps to pre-order devices. Now, it won't work for the iPhones because those have all been announced already, but for upcoming devices to where you have to pre-order, you can actually pre-order and select to pick it up in the store. Now, I don't know if this came about specifically because of COVID-19 and us being able to not have all these people crowded around the Apple Store at one time, to where they've rolled out this express pickup. But I just wanted to let people know for the hookup, if you're looking to pre-order an Apple device like an iPhone, for maybe like the iPhone 13 or whatever they call it, you actually can pre-order the device ahead of time and have it and select the option to pick it up in the store. Like I said, this is something I'm pretty sure it existed, but it has come to fame as a result of the social distancing and practicing, staying a safe distance from everybody, to where now, you can actually have Apple come out and deliver your device to your car, or you can deliver to pick it up in the Apple Store, to where you set an appointment to where they can monitor and regulate how many people are coming in and out of the store. So that's my little hookup for the week. I did it, so I'm going to pick it up this time on Friday. If you're listening to this now, I will, follow me at Brother Tech, and I'll let you know how my process went, because by the time you hear this, I'll probably already have it in my hands. So that's my hookup tip for the week. So unless you didn't have anything, Nika, we're going to end this show. We want to thank you for listening. You can download, rate, and review us. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts, and we're on Spotify. You can engage with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We are at snobOS Cast. You can definitely watch us on YouTube. You can follow us at snobOS Cast. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. You can leave comments and suggestions. We're on the web at snoboscast.com, or you can shoot us an email at snoboscast@gmail.com. Finally, support the show. We would appreciate your support. You can become a Patreon for as little as $5. You get access to our pre-show. You get access to the live show, and you get access to our Discord chat, where we talk all things tech in between the show. So we want to thank you for watching. We want to thank you for your support. And until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye.